Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pitufo Angels Ended Soccer interview. Today, we're going to be interviewing Billy Joe Cain, Executive Director of the Radical Empathy Foundation, an organization that aims to create empathy about the subject of human trafficking through VR. So, today, we're going to be introducing Billy. So, Billy, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much. I brag on you all the time. I'm always telling people how enthusiastic you are about ending trafficking, and I'm so glad we had a chance to get to meet together, and now we're working together, and love to share my message of hope with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Billy. And for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Andres Medellin. They call me Pitufo, which means Smurf in Spanish. And I am the founder of Pitufos Angels or Ended Soccer. And we fight human trafficking through soccer since 2010. So, Billy, tell me in a few sentences a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the fight against human trafficking, please.
Ooh, few sentences. I'll do the best I can. I started working in the interactive video game industry in 1992. Sometime around 2012 or so, I was working on a project at home, and I found out that my boss, who is a friend of mine or was a friend of mine at the time, was actually a sex predator. So when he would be calling my house to talk to me, sometimes he would talk to my kids first. And I found out that what he was doing was grooming my children. I didn't know anything about what that was. So I tried to go find some interactive education about it, couldn't find any. So a few years later, I got started in virtual reality, and I found out that it would be the perfect medium to give somebody a way to understand how grooming could happen to anybody.
Perfect. That was very, very straight to the point. Thank you so much. So you mentioned that this was back in 2012. So I want to come back to this point later. But for now, I'm going to ask you, what was the worst experience you had ever since you started this journey to fight human trafficking, and what did you learn from it?
Ooh, okay. So I have there is so much to say. So what I have learned since I've been in this field, that you really have to have a personal connection to the topic before you actually really care about it and will change your life. So that's one of the things that's really important about this VR experience that we created is it gives you a virtual character that you can care about and uses that anchor. And so what I have found throughout my years is that the people that are working in this field, whether they're in family protective services, police, etc., when I go and I give talks at conferences or I'm doing trainings at conferences, everyone wants to tell me their worst story of what happened to them or some child. So the bar for the things that just get worse and worse just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. I mean, I don't even like telling any of these stories, but I will say that probably the one that was most surprising that's easy for people to understand is when we trained at a middle school and we had 8 little girls aged 12 to 14 decided they wanted to stay after our training, and they wanted to tell us about 2 children the year before that were being trafficked in their classes. So those students actually disclosed 2 separate situations. One was being trafficked by her stepfather for sex, and the other one had actually been taken to Mexico, and her parents sold one of her kidneys. And so the stories just get worse from there. We are in a desperate situation. We need parents to understand just how risky this world is. The internet, online gaming, cell phones, text messages. It's a very dangerous place, and we've got to do a better job of educating people.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And the reason why I asked that question is because usually the worst experience for fighters is the reason why they join the fight, right? But you have said it loud and clear. The bar for the worst experience just keeps on going higher and higher. I mean, I can't even imagine going to a middle school and finding out that 2 children were being trafficked in that middle school. That's heartbreaking, you know.
The thing that was really, I mean, beyond that, obviously, that is heartbreaking. The thing that was really shocking was that the teachers that were in the room with us, they knew exactly who those kids were talking about. The school only had 750 kids in it at all, and so they had actually known them, and they were like, "Is that why she went to Mexico for that operation? Is that why that other girl would always bring in money for us and she would donate stuff?" And it's like, yeah, she felt guilty, and her dad felt guilty, so he donated money to the school. So there was all kinds of crazy things that were like signals that those teachers were like, you could see them connecting the dots in their head as we were talking about it. And the kids were like, well, yeah, of course that happened. How come everybody didn't know? And I was just like, wow. Just,
If only they had the information to connect those dots together, right?
well, we provided that information for those kids that year. And then they not only did those students, not only did the teachers implement it and they were using our VR forever, they still use it, but the students actually made the teachers start having parents' nights so they could have nights where the parents would come up and the kids would put the parents through the VR.
Beautiful,
So,
beautiful, beautiful. All right, let's go to the next question. What is the biggest challenge in your opinion? Actually, sorry, I butchered that. What has been the most rewarding and hope-giving experience you had in your anti-human trafficking journey so far?
oh, well, almost every one of these hopeful things kind of gets preceded by a problem. And so here's what I can tell you. So in Texas, Texas is just a very large state. I'm not bragging, it just is. So we have our high schools have student councils, right? So there's a giant organization that's in charge of all of them, the Texas Association of Student Councils. We got asked to go to their annual conference. So they invited us up there. So one day on Saturday we trained all day, and on Sunday they let us have a room where we got a chance to talk to all the students that were there. There were 4,000 people expected to be there, and I did a survey, and I got 300 responses. I found out that of all the students, what I found out was, first of all, the students had to beg for human trafficking to be the cause for the year. The teachers and parents said no, they didn't want it to be, so they refused to let them do it. Then the kids mounted a revolt, so the kids actually managed to get it to be their topic for the year. And I'm like, great, I can't wait to hear this stuff. So I got a survey back from almost 300 of the students that were there. So that's almost 8%, I guess, of people. There were a pretty good number. And I found out that according to the survey, 94% of those students, and these are the leaders that ran for student council and made it all the way to this conference, they got zero training at all throughout the entire year because their teachers and administrators wouldn't let them have it. So that's the horrible part about this. But what I found out the next day was that all the students, we had 450 kids come in, and they all, no adults came in. So we had these huge rooms filled with students, and we just asked them, why not? What happened? What's going on? And, who is it? It's like, do you guys want this training? These students want this training. They were begging for it. They did everything they could during the year, but the parents were pushing back. Why? I mean, I know all that sounds bad, but here's the good part. The good part is that those kids that know they need this information, they are growing up, and those kids are going to be the ones that are going to push this. They are going to make sure that this is happening. It's going to take a generation, but they know that they need this information. And I've seen this already with people using video games for training. There used to be this concept of the Atari generation. So if you grew up on an Atari on a 2600, you were of a mindset that said games can teach me. But if you didn't, you were older than that, you wouldn't do it. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing that kind of Atari generation is now going through, and they're getting older, and they want to get this training. They don't care that it says sex. They don't care that they have to learn about that stuff. They know that they need to be safe, and they are going to do whatever they can for the next generation.
This is how the next generation is gonna learn to end human trafficking. So what was the most rewarding part of that whole experience to you? Just seeing the students' interest in learning?
Finding out, yes, that the students were really interested in learning, and they were losing their minds about it. But finding out that they had to stand up and make this happen for the year was really heartening to me. It made me feel good that the students were like, look, we have to know this stuff. Now they weren't completely successful, but hey, you got to start somewhere. And in a movement like this is this is grassroots, man. This is a family by family, a child by child, a classroom by classroom movement to get some information in there so we can actually make a difference on a small scale so that it can grow to be a larger scale. This is a grassroots thing. Nobody's teaching this from the top down. There's no like standards of what needs to be taught as far as first aid or anything like that. There's no like, here are the national standards on teaching people about human trafficking. We got to do it ourselves. So that's what we're here to do, you and me. We are doing this on a person by person basis, no matter who they are, where they are, wherever we got to drag those headsets along with us. Let's do this.
That's right, baby. That's right.
Got it.
Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And it's really sad that the parents and the teachers were not involved, but it's really amazing that the students took the lead, because like you said, they're the ones that are gonna end human trafficking. The next generation is the one that gives hope in this specific fight. All right, let's jump to the next question. What is the biggest challenge, in your opinion, to ending human trafficking, and what are you doing to overcome this challenge?
Okay, so I think I think the biggest problem with trafficking is that it causes people to question their reality and their firmly held beliefs. So we are looking at a problem that's happening everywhere. It's a problem that's happening in every community. It's not just sex trafficking, it's labor trafficking. And we have a world economy that is built on a race to the bottom. Where can you get paid cheaper and cheaper and cheaper? And along the way, there are people that are being trafficked for their work. I mean, I worked at Electronic Arts, and I was working sometimes 7 days a week, 16 hours a day for months, and I couldn't have time off. I was being labor trafficked making video games. So I didn't know that at the time, but that's what was happening. So we see this constantly. So what you're really trying to do is you're trying to tell people that your reality is not what you think it is. So you have personal biases, you have cognitive dissonance, and you have a false sense of security. And you're asking people to let go of all of that for a while to try to get them to understand that there really are people that are out there that are evil and that are taking advantage of people. And you need to get them to question their reality. That, I think, is the single most difficult thing, is to get people to let their guard down and listen. It doesn't take long if they actually listen, but it is a significant impediment to getting this information out there. I've never thought it would have been that hard, but it's unbelievable, the psychological aspect of this. And then on top of that, then you add in the fact that you have parents that don't want anybody to talk about sex to their children. And you're like, but I'm trying to protect your children from being sexually abused. I'm trying to protect them from those kind of things. And you have to use the word sex. You have to, because that's what's happening. So those are the impediments that I see. And
may I interrupt you for a moment?
Please, yeah.
Billy, you said something that is key, and you said that the biggest challenge is for people to open up and question their reality. Now, that is an extremely deep statement, right? Because people have a hard time thinking outside the box, seeing other perspectives that is not their own lived reality. And when you say that the reality that they live in is not the truth, then that robs off a lot of people their own way. And we talked about this a lot in many of our conversations, right? Getting people to listen is extremely difficult because, as you just said, they have to question their own reality in order to listen. The moment you tell them human trafficking exists and there is people being sold right here, right now, in this country, in this city, in this neighborhood, and they haven't seen it with their own eyes, they have to question their own reality. So I think that's an extremely important point you just made, and thank you for sharing that with us.
I appreciate you saying that. Let me. Do you mind if I share my screen real fast? I wrote a piece on this, and I'm gonna drop
Please
it in the chat, and
go for it.
we can post this in the description of this video. But so I was trying to explain this to people, and this is my as I assert that this is the fact. One of the most difficult challenges in raising awareness of human trafficking is creating a meaningful emotional connection to the victims. I really believe that is key. That's why I believe in the VR product. But our firmly held beliefs can fool us into believing this would never happen to ourselves or somebody else through these three things: biases, cognitive dissonance, and a false sense of security. What happens is if it hasn't happened to them or somebody they know, they think that it's just bogus. And I just don't know how else to talk about this. We have to get people to
Um,
understand that this really, really happens.
Billy, can we
Yeah,
just please repeat that again? If it hasn't happened to them or
if it hasn't
someone
happened
they
to them or
know,
somebody they love, that's
it's
right.
virtually impossible to get them to listen about human trafficking. That just cuts through the heart because it's so true.
It's I mean, I know you've experienced this because you wear shirts that say human trafficking, but when you walk into public, you get two reactions. One is I don't even want to look at those words make me uncomfortable, or people will run to you and tell you that something has happened to somebody they know, or worse, or it happened to them. It's almost one or the other. So we're at conferences, and I have my booth set up, and I've got a bunch of headsets, and I'm teaching people, and the big sign says human trafficking prevention education. You can watch people as they walk up. If they're looking, they say, "Oh, cool, VR," and as soon as they see human trafficking, they're like, you can determine whether they're going to pay attention and listen, or they're going to just turn around, walk the other way. It's really unbelievable.
It's exactly like this. And for those of you that don't know, whenever I go to any of my soccer games or whenever I go to any of the events, anti-human trafficking events I participate on, I always bring the VR headsets and I bring pamphlets and I bring things that say human trafficking, learn about human trafficking, learn how to fight human trafficking, how to end human trafficking. And people literally glance at it and look away. Like I
It's
walk through
unbelievable.
airports with this stuff and with a sign that says learn to fight human trafficking. And people literally like walk the other way, even if it's out of their way, because that's how delicate of a subject it is for some people.
It is, and and I know you know this, but for the people that are watching this and hearing this stuff for the first time, our media is not helping. Our media can easily just tell people human trafficking happens because of action, means, and purpose. That this is real. The media actually does things like make it worse in many ways. I mean, like when they talk about how people are being shipped from Texas to go to other states or from Florida to go to other states. They're like, is that human trafficking? It's like, no, dude, you're the media. That's not human trafficking. Human trafficking has a profit motive. There is a profit motive. If there is profit in it, then you need to then start looking for the other things. Is somebody that's getting that benefit, that commercial benefit, are they the one that's moving those people and providing those people? Are those people being forced through force, fraud, or coercion into doing that stuff? But the thing is that no, the state of Texas is not trafficking people by shipping them to other states. The media could fix that. It's a problem, and they shouldn't be doing all of that stuff, and that's its own thing. But it's not trafficking. Stop it, guys. Get with the program. I will teach you myself using my online course. I will go through it with you. If you are a newscaster, I will teach you what the definition of human trafficking is so that you can teach our public. We need our media to understand it, to talk about it, and to accurately portray it so that it actually so the fear level goes down. And I will close with this one thing I wanted to add to all that stuff. I went and gave a talk at a church, and I'm in the room with these people, and they are literally so scared of human trafficking and thinking that bad things are going to be happening that they're like in fear, and they want to go hurt people. They're like, we have to stop all these traffickers. I'm like going, let's talk about what the definition of trafficking is. and let's talk about how vulnerabilities get taken advantage of, and let's talk about how this is happening inside of families, because families are having financial difficulties and they look at their children and they use their children for this stuff. I'm like, one guys. So I had a 20-minute talk, got them all calmed down so they understood what human trafficking was. We had a big discussion about what is an action, what does it mean, what is a purpose, how does the financial aspect of that all play into this stuff. And by the time we were finished, they all actually were calm and they were like, oh, okay, so this is actually a thing that can be known. Yes. And we can do this. We can educate people about this stuff. It doesn't have to be through fear, and it doesn't have to be through that kind of anxiety. Learn what it is. Learn how to protect your children. Learn how to recognize your own vulnerabilities so that you don't get taken advantage of.
Thank you so much, Billy. And we're gonna go back to your website and to what you are doing to tackle this challenge at the end of the interview. So let's go through the other questions. We just have 2 more questions. What is the business model of your organization and organizations, and how can you help? How can we help to grow them?
So that's a good question. So I run 2 organizations. One is called Radical Empathy, and we license our virtual reality software to groups so they can train with it. And I run another organization called PBJ Learning. It's a developer. We do online courses, and we also develop other virtual reality simulations and things like that. The business model is based on people using the products instead of me going out and begging for a bunch of money. Don't get me wrong. I would happily take, $20 a month because it helps us pay for our web fees and stuff like that. But I didn't want to create a business that was all donation based. I wanted it to be, if someone wants to use our product, they can raise the money and then they get the software. So what we do is we license our software to a group. They can use the software in any way that they want. They purchase as many headsets as they want. I'm not in the headset business. This is something that they can solve themselves. And then, and with PBJ Learning, we have online courses, and those courses can be purchased as name your own price, which could be $0 if that's what you can afford, or if you want to help us out a little bit, that's great. And then we have a mastery certificate. We have, and then we have university credit. And then we also have some courses that are very specific to jobs, like if you're in the hospitality industry or if you're a rideshare driver. And we're making new ones all the time.
So let's take advantage of that we're here right now, and let's show the kind of courses that you offer really quick, because that is your main breadwinner. That is how you keep the mission alive.
Yes, it is.
See my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. So here you have the PBJ Learning website, and here you see right off the bat, choose your human trafficking essentials online course, and it tells you, the different types of certificates that they have. And there is a 60-second quiz that you could take to find out how much you know about human trafficking. And there is just so much stuff over here. There is a knowledge vault, there is a shop card, and the different types of certifications, you could find them here. And I myself have taken the human trafficking essentials, and I got the certificate, and it was amazing. I've been fighting human trafficking through soccer since 2010, and I failed this course. They quiz you at the beginning, and I thought I would know more, but it taught me so much.
Well, I know that you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, and I know you'll talk to Dave about it. But Dave, my partner, Dr. David Deeds, he has his doctorate in education, and he has actually been teaching this course essentially for 15 years. So he has really put a lot of thought into it. He's had a lot of time to be in a room with a bunch of students, and these are criminal justice students that he's been teaching for this long. So he knows when he says something, he knows what kind of looks people get on their faces when they're confused. So it's like we spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we could simplify everything, try to speak in plain English. So I think it's a pretty good course. And we adjust it constantly. We have people review the course probably at least 4 times a year. So I'm constantly going in and updating stuff. There's been some new information released recently. In fact, there's a group that's called Ranch Hands Rescue in Louisiana. They just came out with a whole bunch of new studies about boys in America and sex trafficking, and they say that their stats now show that boys are 50% of the sex trafficking victims in America. 50% are boys.
Wow,
That
that's
number has never been that high, and I think they well, when I get all their information, I've got a meeting with them coming up, but that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to do, is find what is the newest, most cutting edge information that we can get our hands on. I just put an article up on the Knowledge Vault about uh, about feminism and third wave feminism, and how that is turning into gender violence. And one of the problems that we're having across the world is that people aren't using the same language. So it's called Gender and Sexual Cyber Violence, an Exploratory Cross-Cultural Inquiry. It's an amazing paper, and I just got my hands on that. So there's all kinds of really great stuff up on our Knowledge Vault. Everything's categorized and cross-referenced, and I take this stuff very seriously. We need it.
so first thing you can do to help out Billy and his mission and our mission to end human trafficking is go to PBJ Learning. Okay, we'll put the link on the descriptions.
That's right.
And take any of the courses. Okay, even if you take the name your own price, you could give $5. Please give $5, but also educate yourself. That is the mission for us to end human trafficking. So pbjlearning.com, and then you could find the human trafficking course in there. Also, I'm gonna share, because let me know when you see the screen. The main way that you guys make money or raise funds is through the headsets, through licensing these virtual reality headsets, so you could teach people about human trafficking through virtual reality. So right now you have one module, as far as I know, which is called Trapped, a VR detective story. But the first module is about a 14-year-old girl that got trafficked in plain daylight. Her name is Lisa. And can you tell us more about the story and how it's gonna evolve and how many modules there are gonna be?
That's a great question. So, what you're looking at in the video that's on our site, that is the virtual reality experience called Trapped, the VR detective story. It's designed in 3 acts, and the first act is what people are experiencing right now, and the first act really focuses on the supply. Where are these victims coming from? And so it explains how this young girl is tricked by an online predator who convinces her that her parents are the bad guys, and that he's only going to, that she and he are going to go run off into the sunset together. She's having problems with her family. Her mom and dad are divorced, so she's emotionally vulnerable. Her mom doesn't have enough time for her because her mom's busy working all the time. So she and her mom are fighting. And so what happens is this predator comes into her life, and he fills that need. She needs, like every human being, she needs attention and she needs affection. And so she gets it from this guy online. So what we're doing is we put you in her shoes, and then Lisa explains how that happened. And one of the things that's really complicated about trafficking is that people become psychologically tricked and manipulated by these groomers and these predators. And so what they do is they change the way that you think about things. Like you and I think, hey, if I'm having problems, I'm going to call the police. Or if I had a cell phone, I would just call my parents and they would come help me out of this thing. Well, this person has manipulated them so much and has them psychologically, confused that it's really difficult for people to even understand that. So like we were talking about earlier, how people, they don't understand unless this happens to somebody they know or something like that. So when you're in this headset, you understand that Lisa's relationship with her cell phone is not the same relationship that you and I have with a cell phone. I would call the police, or I'd call my parents, or I would do this. She says that she can't call the police because her boyfriend pimp is going to beat her up. She can't call her parents because this guy has threatened to hurt her family. He even knows all of her friends on social media, so he can do something with that. her relationship with makeup isn't where, oh, makeup's going to make me look glamorous. What it does is she sees that makeup as a way for herself to have to make herself look older or younger, depending on whoever it is that's buying her at that particular moment. So it's like her mind is different than the way that a normal person is. And so whenever you actually put that headset on, you get to feel that. And having that emotional connection to Lisa really makes a difference. And I did want to share that we are working on another VR simulation, and this one is about labor trafficking. It is called Tricked, an American visa story. And the idea is a young girl from the Philippines comes to America. She has to hire a recruiter to get her to get the job. She's out over $10,000 to do this, which is crazy that it would cost that much. So she flies to America. She gets with this family that's supposed to be taking care. She's going to be taking care of that family and helping around the house with their children and stuff. And then the guy takes her passport away, makes her work too many hours, tells her that she can't go to the cops because the cops are gonna hurt her, and she can't go run away because the gangs are gonna beat her up. So that I had to do like 9 months worth of research to try to even understand how big a problem this is. But domestic servitude is enormous. And so when this young girl gets stuck in the situation in this VR experience, you would think, oh, well, why don't you just go get another job? Well, to get another job, you actually have to leave the country and go back to your home country and then get another job over there. And then you're out maybe another $10,000 to $14,000. So you're digging yourself into debt that you're going to have to pay off by coming back to America. It is very scary. So we have tons of documentation on labor trafficking I can tell you all about. But
well, let's take it back to basics, Billy. People don't even know the definition of human trafficking, much less that they understand labor trafficking.
So right? Human trafficking, the basic definition of it is there are three elements that have to be present. You have to have an act or an action, a means, and a purpose. And those words mean absolutely nothing. So it's like I have to describe what each one of those words means. So an action is you basically being in control of someone's body. So I can cause someone to show up somewhere. I may have them in a room, or I may make them show up because I call them to get there, but I'm in charge of their body. Then the means is I am forcing them to do something. I have tricked them into doing something, or I'm taking advantage of them. So it's either force, fraud, or coercion. So I have caused them to do something against their will. And then the purpose is always about a commercial activity. So it is about making money. So I make money by forcing someone to show up and do something. So that's whether it's sex or labor or anything else, that's the basic. So that's human trafficking. Human trafficking is, go ahead.
And I want to interrupt you here because people confuse rape and kidnapping with human trafficking all the time. So what Billy just explained should clarify to you that unless there is a commercial transaction, unless there is monetary gains or some sort of transaction, then it's not really considered human trafficking. So you hear a lot of people talk about the rape stories or talk about like kidnapping. Hollywood does this a lot. In the movies, they do this a lot, like Billy was explaining, putting people in containers and shipping them and all that stuff. Unless they're not being exploited for commercial use, it's not considered human trafficking.
Yep. We have a whole section in our course that goes through here is what trafficking is and what it isn't. So I mean, those are all horrible crimes, rape, sexual assault, kidnapping. I mean, like all of those things are horrible, but there's a special requirements for trafficking, and it's those three basic things. I mean, somebody can be smuggled across the border through a coyote because they wanted to come here, they pay money to get here, but once they get here, maybe they become trafficked, but getting across the border, that is not trafficking. So there's so much I don't know, I wouldn't even call it mystery, but there's so much vagary around what the topic is. I mean,
but there's so much ignorance, right? That's the word, ignorance.
It's just and ignorance just means that you haven't been educated about something. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means somebody hasn't unveiled that to you yet. And Andres and I are happy to unveil human trafficking meanings and the requirements to everybody, because that's the basics place that we start with all of this stuff. We have to teach the very basics. What is this thing that we're all so scared of?
Yep. Whenever you see this red X, is the international symbol for the fight against human trafficking. So even children could understand what this red X means. My daughter and my sons already know what the red X means, and they're toddlers, you know. So the easier the better, and that's what we intend to do with the work we do. Billy, the last question, and then we could ramble a little bit and we could share more information as we like. If there is one thing you will tell people about human trafficking to empower them to end it, what would it be?
Well, I think you and I have said over and over that people got to get educated about it. I think that is really where it's got to be. We've got to stop being afraid of it, and we have to talk about it. You know, the one of the things that is it's when a child has access to the internet through a phone or through a computer, it's not that you're giving that child access to the internet. You are giving the internet access to that child. When
Going
that
to repeat that. When you give access to a
when you
child
give a
to the
child,
internet, in reality, you're giving the internet access to your child.
that's right. It's just like if you drove off down the road and you were at the busiest highway intersection on the planet and you just kicked your kid out and just said, good luck. That's what's happening when a kid has unfettered access on the internet, period. And I love the internet. I love technology. But the thing is that it is dangerous. Children not only don't know what, they don't even understand language and how to keep themselves safe. They don't understand the way that adults and these professional predators are using techniques against them that they have no defense from. They do not. They get tricked, they get blackmailed, they get extorted. This is happening, and I know you and I can talk about this for hours, but what's happening is these predators are using technology to automate the grooming process and using techniques that are use artificial intelligence, that use LLMs, blah blah blah, bots, etc. And it is more dangerous than ever. And so it's not just kids. I mean, like you may have somebody elderly in your family who's getting closer to dementia or whatever, and these people are going to trick them out of their money. The amount of scams that are happening on the internet is just outrageous. So it's like there really needs to be like some internet literacy being taught to people. But I would just say, yeah, we gotta teach people just how vulnerable they are on the internet. I think you're muted. I think you muted yourself. Oh wait, you're not muted, but I'm not
Yeah,
hearing you.
yeah. I
Okay,
was.
sorry.
Thank you. So the one thing you would tell people about human trafficking to empower them to end it, it would be to talk about it and to educate yourself so you could protect yourself and your loved ones.
That's right. And everybody that's in your life, you this is an education problem.
Mm.
This is a straight up education problem, and it is a failure on our part of our entire. I will indict the entire American educational system because we're not teaching this stuff.
Yes.
It's not being taught in higher education. It's not being taught in nursing school. And well, I mean, it is to some degree, but it's not being taught enough. It is not a requirement for people to graduate. I can't even tell you how many doctors and nurses have told me that the first time they heard about it was in their first annual training. And I'm like, how did you get through college? You know, Dave teaches. There you go. Yeah, that's right. Dave's course that's his capstone, my partner's capstone. He wrote that because he found out that the people at his school were not teaching human trafficking, and he teaches in criminal justice.
So
It's
look.
the second largest crime on the planet.
Yep.
And they're not teaching it. How is this possible?
Can you enlighten the viewers as to how much money human trafficking makes?
Well, because it's a crime, they have estimates. And so the
Exactly.
estimates that I think are probably most quoted are from the International Labor Organization. I believe they quoted $150 billion per year on trafficking. And that's sex trafficking and labor trafficking. The numbers are outrageous. These numbers are so large that it's unfathomable. It's just, they're so astronomical. So
Human trafficking makes more than all the major airlines combined.
all of the entertainment industry, all of it. It's insane. And it's giant mega corporations that are doing this across the board too. I mean, look at what's every phone that we have, everything that has a rechargeable battery in it, that has to have rare earth minerals. Look at what's going on with cobalt. Look at, if you're curious, dear listeners, look up cobalt red. You will find that there are children that are enslaved and they are digging up cobalt, which is radioactive and causing cancer. They're digging it up with their hand, and they have hidden this by calling it artisanal mining. It's not called slavery, it's called artisanal mining. It is the most insane stuff ever. I mean, yeah, it's a lot.
Cobalt red. Well, I'm gonna share the screen a little bit just so people could see about this cobalt red, because I didn't even know. Modern day slavery in the Congo powers a rechargeable battery economy. Wow.
Yeah, there's
Definitely, we need to continue to educate ourselves. We need to try to educate our loved ones or friends, because, like Billy said, this is an education problem. If we talk
education.
about human trafficking, if we talk about sex, if we talk about topics like pornography, then there is no way that human trafficking could continue to be the second largest growing industry in the world. I mean, we're not talking about, it happens once in a while. We're talking about the second largest growing industry in the world. Correct me if I'm wrong, Billy.
That's right. That's what the numbers show. The numbers show. It's crazy.
Now, I want to go back to your story because we're about to close up the interview. You said this happened around back in 2012, correct?
Yep, that's about right.
And this is what got you started in the fight against human trafficking. Now, going back to 2012, is there anything you would have done differently? Maybe in order to convict the person that was grooming your children, or in order to protect your children? Is there anything you would have done differently back then?
Wow. That's a question that I've sort of like left that over there. I don't really think about that too much because I put my effort into, doing this work.
Mm.
I would have gotten started sooner. I think I would have. I mean, like I was always taught when I was a kid, like if you can make a difference, go make a difference. If you can make a difference, go make a difference. I waited years before trying to make a difference. Now, knowing what I know, knowing how poorly educated the entire world is about this topic, knowing how afraid everyone is of this topic, knowing that it plays into everything, I would have just gotten started soon.
Thank you so much, Billy, for that.
You
Thank you.
bet.
And we're looking forward to all the wonderful work you're doing with Radical Empathy. Looking forward to the other two stories to come out in the VR headset. We're gonna be promoting these ones in all our events, in all our soccer games. Billy, it has been an enormous pleasure to interview you again. This is
Thank
the
you.
second time we interview Billy. So if you're interested, also go to our YouTube channel, watch the first couple interviews. And Billy, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, not only for being an amazing fellow fighter, but for inspiring me and motivating me to continue the fight against human trafficking.
It makes me feel so good that I am doing something that means something to you because you are an inspiration to me. When you send me those WhatsApps with a picture of somebody, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to work harder, and so I feel so. It makes my day get going. And so whoever is listening to this, somebody get him some more headsets. Donate him some Best Buy gift cards. Find a way to get him some cash so he can go buy some used headsets through eBay. We have a whole way that we're reusing headsets that are not being used anymore. So we plow everything back into that. The more headsets that he has, the more people he can reach. So let's make it happen, guys.
And let's fight human trafficking together, everyone.
You got that right. We're doing it.
Oh.
Let's go. All right, I'm going to have to run, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Billy. Take care.
Bye.